Welcome to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schugnacht, and today's guest is Mia J. Hanks, author of Bridemaid. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I'd love to just have you tell me first about your book. So Bridemaid, a memoir. Tell me about your book. Why did you write this book?
I was in a situation, narcissistic abuse is what my book is about. I was married to a covert narcissist for 29 years. And when I got out of that marriage, I really was wanting to delve into learning more about narcissism and just figuring out what had happened to me. And I found a lot of good books out there, but it seemed that they were all written by therapists and psychologists. And what I was looking for was a real insider point of view. I wanted to know what someone else's life looked like day to day inside one of these types of marriages with a narcissist. And I really couldn't find that. I decided maybe I would try penning a memoir, thinking maybe it might help other people out there who have been in these types of marriages and relationships. So that's how the book came to be. And yeah, I just hope that it lands in the right hands of people who really need to read it.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting story. So, like, you wrote the book that you looked for and needed that would have helped you. And yeah, like you said, hopefully it is helping other people in that situation. So, we don't have, you and I talked about this before, but we are not recording video, and that is for your own safety. So, how is the process of promoting a book without putting your face and your personality out there? I would imagine that's really challenging.
It has been really, for safety reasons, I don't go on camera. And it definitely, I've had to work through those challenges of still trying to get the message out there without using my face. I guess I'm just hoping that the words resonate with people and that I can still effectively promote it, doing podcasts and various interviews, just trying to reach those people out there that I know there's so many victims out there. And yeah, it's a challenge, but I think it's workable.
Yeah, you do a lot of podcast interviews, and I've seen those interviews out there where you don't show your face, but you're telling your story. And I imagine that does make it just a little more challenging with people being able to connect with you and just being able to the types of marketing you could do for your book. But great that you're able to do it. So the narcissistic, you said 29 years
Yeah.
that you were married. So at what point did you say, like, enough is enough? Like, how did you make that decision after 29 years to get out of that situation?
I think I wanted out on and off through a lot of those years. Definitely, I would say the last 5 to 7. You get wrapped up in, I got married very young. I was 21 years old. And you get wrapped up in this relationship where you're being gaslit. You are being told you're the problem. And being young and naive, like I was way back when, I believed that. And I believed I was the problem. And there are just a lot of reasons why you end up getting stuck. Financial abuse. My husband controlled the finances 100%. That's a means of control, right? So it's not just that easy to pick up and say, I'm just going to walk away from this. There's the
Right.
embarrassment factor, right? It's embarrassing. And then the deeper you get into it and the more years you stay, the harder it is to get out, because then you've got to explain to people, I was being abused, but I stayed for that long. And people are like, it couldn't have been that bad. Look how long you toughed it out. Yeah, it's crazy. But I would say the last couple of years, the stress I was living under, my physical health was deteriorating as a result. And I just reached a point where physically, with that fight or flight mode all the time, walking on eggshells, that constant stress was just breaking me down. And I had to make a change. It wasn't sustainable. And in order to save myself, I just had to get out.
Mhm. So we hear these words a lot, like narcissist and gaslighting. Give me what do those things mean? I had to go through my own journey over the last couple of years of understanding that better, not in a personal relationship, but like in the workplace, really, not
Yeah.
in my home life. But I really, I had to hear that word all the time, narcissist and gaslighting, I really didn't know what they meant. Like I had to like do my own like research around it. And when I did, it was like just really eye-opening, mind-blowing. Oh my gosh, like this is exactly what's happening to me. But I didn't understand it. So yeah, I'd love for you to just talk through what is narcissistic behavior and what is that gaslighting that you were experiencing, and give like some examples of that to people, help people understand that.
Yeah, so both terms are widely overused. We want to call anyone who appears very overconfident and arrogant, we want to call them a narcissist. That's not what narcissism is. In
Yeah.
fact, with my experience is with a covert narcissist. These people appear to be anything but a narcissist. To the outside world, my husband was kind. He was generous. He was empathetic. He was just this all around great guy, father of the year, husband of the year. Behind closed doors, he was not. He was who he was, which is a narcissist. These people are obviously, they think the world revolves around them, but everything has to be for them and about them. The biggest issue with a narcissist is you can never give them enough. There is no such thing as enough. They believe that people are jealous of them. They think that people want what they have, which then makes them paranoid, really. They don't want to, they feel like they can't relate to anyone that's not on their quote unquote level. These people they demand everything from you. They will suck you dry. And yeah, that's what constant attention, constant praise, anything that you do. For example, if you achieve an accomplishment, it's downplayed. Well, that's not really a big deal. But if they do the tiniest little thing, they expect just unbelievable praise and admiration. So yeah, they can't ever be fulfilled enough. Gaslighting is a tactic that they use. Again, it is used incorrectly most of the time when you hear people talk about it. It's not synonymous with lying. A lot of people think it just means lying to somebody. It's more about changing the narrative. So for example, if I would say to my now ex-husband, when you said this or when you did this, it really hurt me. His response would never be to apologize, because narcissists don't apologize. Instead, he would flip it and say, well, the problem is you, because you're too sensitive. And your reaction to what I said or what I did was just not the appropriate reaction. You have a problem. No one else would be offended by that. And so you come away from this thinking you're going to address this issue. You walk away instead feeling horrible. I'm sorry I even brought that up. So you do start to believe, I think I'm the problem. Maybe I'm going crazy. And you learn not to trust yourself. And then that's just a slippery slope. In years of that, you really are just a shell of who you used to be. You just don't know who you are anymore, and you can't trust your own intuition.
Yeah, that comment that you said about you feel like you're going crazy. You're like, maybe I'm crazy. I can't remember your exact wording, but I was like, that was the thing that I like when I started researching gaslighting. And there's YouTube videos out there. Like I just started, somebody had put a label on it, put this name on it. And I was like, what does that mean? And I started like watching these YouTube videos, like talking about gaslighting. And I was, oh my gosh, that is what's happening. I have been made to feel like I'm crazy. And like my memory of events was wrong, even though really I know about myself. I don't have a great memory, but my memory is good. Like when it comes to details of things. And I would be like, what? And it would just make me feel like do I not understand my own, whatever. This was in the workplace. So do I not understand my own skill set? Like what I'm good at? I'm pretty sure these are the things that I have done well, but I would be made to believe that wasn't the case. And I don't know. It was just like but it was like, as soon as I realized that, oh, this is what's going on, it really was a game changer for me, because I started looking at every situation and going, oh, I need to process this more. I need to not just take what was said to me and as if that's just truth. I need to dig into it a little bit more and reflect on my own experience and what other people have said, or other people just talk to people. Anyway, that was really helpful for me. But I'm curious what you think. If somebody suspects that they may be being gaslit in any relationship, whether it's a significant other or a boss or whatever, or somebody else in the workplace, what are the things that they should do to try to get their head around it?
Well, I think the first thing is people need to understand these types of behaviors. Of course, when I was in it, I didn't know that there was such a thing as gaslighting. I had never heard of narcissistic personality disorder. And so until we understand these things, it's very easy to think that, yeah, we're the problem. And it's easy to believe these people. These are very manipulating, calculating people. And it's very toxic. But that's the problem. Without the education around knowing and understanding this, we don't know how to deal with it. And we fall into the trap. I think if you do think that you're being gaslit, realize that the person gaslighting you, that's a very insidious tactic and toxic. So my advice would be to remove yourself from that situation if you can, because it's very cruel, to say the least. So it's not something you want to be part of.
Yeah, and then I wonder, I don't know, you earlier on, you were talking about how these terms are really overused. And I think that is also something that, I don't know, I almost think it's good to get somebody else's perspective, whether it be, I don't know, a therapist, a family member, somebody that you can trust to talk to, because you want to make sure that you're not that you can't believe your own like intuition, but if you're having those feelings, don't just assume that somebody is, oh, they're just a narcissist or whatever, and throw out the words.
Yeah,
But I think you should
right.
like talk to trusted people. And like you said, your book is there to help people that are probably more in like a personal relationship, right? Like a
Right, right.
significant other or whatever. But if that's the situation for that person, like your book would be a good one to explore, maybe on a Kindle or something where it's a little more
Yeah.
discreet that you're reading it.
Correct. Yeah, that's been brought up to me. Actually, I've been asked if there's an audiobook, and there's not, as of yet, but that is something that I'm exploring. And that was brought up to me that an audiobook might be safer for some people that if they can't have the physical book, or even maybe they don't want it on a Kindle form, that the audio might be a safer route. So that is something I'm exploring. And it's funny, I had
Yeah.
never considered that. But yeah, I suppose if my ex-husband saw this book laying in our house, he would be like, "Why are you reading about narcissism?" So yeah, I get that totally.
Yeah, yeah. So you do have a Kindle version available, so
I
that's
see.
an option, yeah. And then, yeah, maybe an audiobook to come, but yeah, and I have seen, like, people on TikTok who talk a lot about narcissism. I don't know if they do any kind of, like, consulting around that or whatever, but I do think it's worth if you feel like you're in that spot where you're being made to feel like you're crazy or your memory of events is wrong or just being made to feel bad about yourself in ways that like you maybe wouldn't have felt before in your life. Like those are like
Yeah.
kind of signs to maybe seek out books like
Reach
that or
out. Yeah.
people that you could talk
Yes.
to. Yeah. Mhm.
Some clarity, because it's hard to find clarity. You get so gaslit and you get into a fog. And so it's just hard to know which way is up. And
Yeah.
definitely reach out and get some help. And like you said, second opinions from people you can trust.
Yeah. 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 And I think it's good to know too that it's not just your romantic relationships, but this can happen in any
And
environment, any
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
And for me, like I said, for me, it was somebody that I was working with, and it really messed me up for a while where I was your comment, you don't know which way is up. Like that's how I was just confused about myself and my own value and yeah. So I think it's important to know that it's not just your physical relationships and or your romantic relationships, but it can happen in any kind of relationship. And when it's a boss or somebody in the workplace, it's a lot easier to remove yourself from the situation than it is when your life is entangled with that person.
Yeah.
But just be aware that any relationship can involve that. So, when you wrote this book, were you out of the relationship by that point?
Yes, I was out, and I was unsure about what this process would look like, because I didn't know if it was going to be traumatizing to relive some of this again. But very surprisingly, I found the whole experience to be so therapeutic. I felt like as I recounted all these stories and all these incidents, as I put them on paper, I felt like I could let go of them. It was hard to explain. I felt like I didn't need to hold on to these stories anymore, that I could let it go. So I wasn't expecting the therapeutic side of that. I was pleasantly surprised at, yeah, how helpful it was to write. And I guess I was never one that journaled or anything like that, but I guess that's why
Okay.
they say journaling is so good. Get these things out on paper. It just does something to free you up a bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that a lot from people that write books about situations that are, traumatic or shifting that story, their trauma story into something where they're helping somebody that can really be powerful on your own healing journey. Yeah. And I was just noticing that the book was published on February 14th, which is such a like ironic publication date. But it
Yes.
just it just hit its 1 year anniversary. So
It did,
congratulations
yes.
on that.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an easy date to remember.
So how did you like not having been a journaler before and not knowing how this process would go, how did you approach the writing process of just like sitting down and getting those thoughts out in a way that was organized and helpful? How did you approach just that writing process?
Well, I had been in therapy. I did about a year of therapy, like, regular therapy sessions, and I was dealing with a lot of guilt coming out of this relationship, and I was still the term they use is trauma bond, synonymous with Stockholm syndrome. And I'm still suffering from that a bit at this point, and I'm just feeling so guilty, and I'm telling my therapist, "I just feel so bad. I feel like I ruined his life." And she's reiterating to me, "No, he ruined his life. You didn't ruin his life. He tried to ruin your life." But anyway, I was really having a hard time with it. And one thing she told me to do, knowing that I didn't journal, she said, "I think when you get home today, the best thing for you to do is to get a pen and paper out and just write down, make a list of all the traumatic events that you can remember over the past 3 decades that has happened in this marriage, and then put it away. And when you start feeling guilty and feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have left, I want you to get the list out and I want you to read it and remind yourself why you left." And I thought, I'm not a journaler, but that sounds okay. I'll do that. And so I did. And I ended up with 2 pages of events and I just little bullet points. And then when I decided to try to put together this book, that's what I did. I pulled that list back out and I started expounding on each of those bullet points and started telling the story of each of those incidents. And really, those kind of became a set of short stories and then put them all chronologically, and it just fell into place as a memoir.
Yeah, you had a great kind of like process in getting a lot of that out of your head and onto paper, like you said. You mentioned that you have kids.
I do. I have two. Yes,
Were they, are they grown? Like,
they
where
are.
were they in
Yeah.
this? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. They were
Um,
grown. They were both out of high school when I left, when I
okay.
divorced. So, yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, they're both in their 20s.
Okay. Okay. And then, so how did you approach the process of publishing the book? It looks like you self-published.
I did. I published through Ingram Spark, and I found it to be that was the most overwhelming part, was figuring out, once I had this book done, what do I do with it? And I start researching, and it's overwhelming when you start looking at all of your options and knowing what to do. I just didn't know what to do. But yeah, I ended up Ingram Spark. It just I liked the process, and I liked what they had to offer. And so that's what I went with, and found it to be, I wouldn't say simple, just the whole uploading process and just getting everything just right. Definitely, it is challenging. It took time, but overall, I had a great experience with them. And yeah, I would use them again.
Great. Yeah, I'm curious if maybe you didn't compare, but did you look into Amazon KDP? Did
I
you
did.
choose an Ingram Spark over doing that for a certain reason? I'm just curious because I hear more and more. I used to work in the self-publishing industry, and that was like before Ingram Spark became like a thing. We would publish directly through Ingram, but then they created the like Ingram Spark arm. And I hear more and more about people going directly to Ingram Spark rather than to Amazon KDP. So I'm curious, like, why you chose the one over the other.
This may not be completely correct, but if I can remember I felt like Ingram offered more outlets for my book than KDP.
Mhm.
Now, I would have to delve into that and see if that's in fact true. But it just, on the surface, it looked like there were more, they would push my book more places than KDP would. And the thing is,
Mhm.
with Ingram, it still ends up for sale on Amazon, obviously. It's everywhere, it goes everywhere. So I just felt like there were more outlets through Ingram. And honestly, just looking through their website and the process, for whatever reason, it looked more user friendly.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's why I went with them.
That's what I've heard too, that if you want to get your book into a bookstore, or there's just like different distribution preferences that people have, and using Ingram Spark has been better. So yeah, I actually haven't explored that myself. So I'm curious about it, and want to explore that a little bit as well. But yeah, great to know that's why you chose that. So, Mia, I'm going to link to the book in the show notes. Is there any other kind of way that listeners can learn more about you or about what you have going on? I know you're private for a good reason, but are there any other ways that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, miajhanks.com, and I've recently started a blog on there. There's also links to lots of podcast interviews, obviously a link to buy my book. So check out the website. And then I'm also real active on TikTok. My handle is at NPD&me. So yeah, follow me there. I post pretty much every day, just trying to post a lot of narcissism awareness and tips and just things for help people understand about all of this. And yeah, so I hope people find it helpful.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And thank you for putting this book out there into the world to help other women.
Thank you so much for having me.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyshuckneck.com.